When I accepted the night monitoring assignment, I thought it would be easy money. The forest was quiet during the day, families, hikers, photographers, but after sunset, it became restricted. My job was simple: stay in the cabin, monitor the radio, and report emergencies if needed. The cabin stood alone among towering pine trees, old wood, cracked windows, a faint smell of damp earth. Inside there was a metal desk, a flickering lantern, and a radio that looked older than me. My phone lost signal the moment I stepped inside. Before leaving, the supervisor handed me a laminated sheet titled Night Rules. He didn't explain them, just said, "Read them carefully." I skimmed the list and almost laughed. They sounded like campfire horror stories. Radio static, footsteps, voices calling your name. Outside, the forest moved constantly. Branches swayed even when the wind stopped. Leaves shifted as if something unseen passed through them. It wasn't loud, just aware. At 9:40 p.m., the lantern dimmed for a brief second. The air inside the cabin felt heavier, like the pressure had changed. I suddenly became aware of how isolated I was. Miles from the nearest road, surrounded by trees that blocked the sky. The silence was worse than any noise. No insects, no owls, just stillness. I leaned back in my chair, telling myself I was imagining things. Still, I placed the rules closer to me on the desk. For the first time that night, I felt like the forest wasn't just around the cabin. It was watching it. The radio crackled at exactly 11:17 p.m. At first, it was only static, soft, uneven, like distant rain. Then it grew louder, filling the cabin with white noise. My hand hovered near the microphone out of habit. Then a voice slipped through. "Hello, is anyone there?" It sounded human, calm, tired. I froze. Rule number 1 flashed in my mind. If the radio produces static, do not respond. The voice came again, slightly distorted. "I know you can hear me." I pulled my hand back. That's when I heard footsteps outside. Not fast, not slow. Heavy, deliberate crunching of dry leaves. They circled the cabin, stopping near the walls, then moving again. The pattern was wrong, too uneven, like whatever was walking didn't understand how legs were supposed to work. The lantern flickered violently. Rule number 2, if you hear footsteps, turn off the light. The cabin plunged into darkness. The footsteps stopped instantly. In the pitch black, my breathing sounded too loud. I covered my mouth, afraid even that might give me away. The air felt colder now, and there was a faint smell, like wet soil after rain. Then came a sound that made my blood run cold. A slow knock, not on the door. On the wall, once, twice. Then silence again. I stayed frozen, counting my breaths, listening for movement. Nothing. No footsteps, no wind, no forest sounds at all. It felt like the woods were holding their breath. Minutes passed, maybe more. Time didn't feel real anymore. Then, from just outside the cabin door, I heard it. My name, spoken softly, carefully. Perfect volume, close enough to hear, quiet enough to sound harmless. "Hey, it's cold out here." My throat tightened. Rule number 3, if you hear your name, do not answer. The voice sounded almost like mine, but something was off. The rhythm was wrong. Certain syllables dragged too long, like it was copying speech instead of understanding it. "I know you're awake." The handle on the door didn't move. The voice didn't knock again. It just waited, as if it knew patience would work better. My heart pounded so hard I was sure it could hear it. Then the voice shifted. "I got lost," it said. "Can you help me?" The words felt rehearsed, empty, like lines memorized from listening to others. I glanced toward the window. Moonlight barely cut through the trees, but I could see a shape standing outside. Too tall, too still. It didn't sway with the branches. It didn't breathe. The radio suddenly turned on by itself. Static poured out, followed by whispers, dozens of them overlapping, all saying my name in slightly different ways. The forest wasn't calling me anymore. It was practicing. The door handle began to turn slowly, metal scraping against metal. The voice changed again, now warmer, more confident. "Open the door, you know me." The radio volume spiked. Through the static, the voice came through clearly, almost cheerfully. "You don't need the rules anymore." I backed away, pressing myself against the far wall. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and that's when I noticed something wrong outside the window. The shadow didn't have 2 legs. It shifted, bending unnaturally, its outline stretching across the glass. When it moved, The forest behind it didn't like the trees, refused to acknowledge it. The laminated rules slipped off the desk and landed face up on the floor. At the bottom, a line I hadn't seen before was visible. "If it says your name correctly, you are already dead." The voice spoke again. This time, my name was perfect. No distortion, no hesitation. The door creaked open an inch. I didn't think. I ran. I smashed through the window, glass tearing into my arms, and hit the ground hard. I didn't look back. I didn't scream. I just ran blindly through the trees, branches clawing at my skin. Behind me, something followed, but it didn't run. It walked. I woke up on the side of a highway just before dawn. A passing driver found me shaking, barefoot, bleeding. When I tried to explain what happened, the words wouldn't come out right. The forest felt far away, like a bad dream that still clung to me. Officials later told me something that didn't make sense. There was no active night monitoring cabin in that forest. Hadn't been for years. The cabin I described didn't exist on any map. They assumed I was confused, exhausted, hallucinating. But sometimes, late at night, my phone crackles with static, even with full signal. And occasionally, when everything is quiet, I hear someone say my name from far away, perfectly. If you ever find yourself alone in a forest at night, and someone calls out to you, don't answer, because once the forest learns your name, it never forgets.